Hello and welcome to episode 247 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die. In 1994, we have Pulp Fiction. I feel like this should be like the Star Wars review we did, where you just like leave for 10 minutes, because I really want to talk about my beginnings with this film. In fact,
I wish I could, but of course, plots.
But in fact, actually, when did you first see it? Was it with me, or had you seen it before? Do you have any memories of it growing up?
No.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the first time I saw that and Reservoir Dogs was with you.
Okay.
The only Tarantino movie I'd seen before anything.
Kill Bill, sure, yeah. Makes sense.
I saw that in the cinema and I was pissed off at the ending.
Yeah.
I was so angry.
Is she aware that her daughter is still alive?
I was like, what? A movie with a cliffhanger. I was furious. Let's go on to Pulp Fiction.
I love that. So Pulp Fiction for me is such a special film because when it came out, it was such a huge film. Everyone was talking about it, at the time, and my parents loved it. Like, my mum loved it, my dad loved it. I think my mum loved it because it's a very a dark comedy. There's a lot of humor in this film where a lot of black stuff is happening. And then you have my dad, who I think really loved the soundtrack and just the coolness of it. My dad being a musician and being in a kind of rockabilly band, so that kind of a lot of the music in the film that Tarantino used is the kind of stuff that he really enjoys, and some of it he even plays, I think. In fact, hey, Reservoir Cats, this is actually my dad's band, or his old band. It's long since disbanded. Yeah, so that was a big thing. Knowing my mum and dad loved it, and they were separated, so it was kind of like a separate thing. But my mum had the video, and so I would always see that image of Uma Thurman on the front cover and the 18 logo, like, oh god, that's got to be like a really intense film. And wondering what it was, and having my mum say to her friends, like, oh, you haven't seen Pulp Fiction, you gotta see Pulp Fiction. She'd show friends Pulp Fiction, I'd be upstairs and kind of like listening to the reactions and stuff, hearing them laughing and everything, wondering what it was. And then with my dad, it was the soundtrack. Every time he picked me up from England to take me back to Wales for the school holidays, invariably he'd be driving with one of his mates, they'd have the soundtrack in, and the soundtrack has like clips of dialogue from the film. So I knew all these lines of dialogue. I knew, like, bring out the gimp. Well, the gimp's sleeping. Well, I guess you're gonna have to wake him up now, aren't you? Like, I knew that. I used to quote bring out the gimp, which my dad thought was hilarious because obviously I didn't know what that meant, but he knew exactly what it meant.
How old were you when you saw it then?
I think it was later. Like, it wasn't, like, I think I started seeing like Aliens and like Predator and Terminator when I was like maybe 9, 10. It was a bit later. I think I was more like 12, 13-ish when I got to see Pulp Fiction.
It's absolutely ridiculous how you were allowed to watch movies that PG when you were that young.
But I think when I saw Pulp Fiction, it was a bit of a disappointment because I was just expecting something different, and it's not a movie for kids. I wasn't like shocked or anything. I was just like, oh, it's kind of cool, but it's a bit long and everything, so I didn't really get into it when I first saw it. But I would hear those lines of dialogue, and the opening scene, like the beginning of the soundtrack, starts with the "Any of you fucking pricks move," and to me, all I knew was that front cover of the video, so I thought that was Uma Thurman doing that whole thing. So when I first saw the film, it completely threw me because I was imagining these scenes in my head based on the soundtrack with all the bits of dialogue and stuff. Whose motorcycle is this? Not a motorcycle, it's a chopper. All those scenes I kind of had burned into my brain because the soundtrack was played over and over again.
So we're doing a review of the movie or just your childhood?
Well, I like if I have those stories, I like to share them in the video. We're not going to review this film again, so I feel like I can get it all out now.
Are we not?
But that's like no, I don't think so. Maybe no. We'll I think we've got all we ever need to say about this film now, really, because you watch it when you're young, or at least I did, and then I watched it when I was a teenager and got so much more out of it. I was more into films then.
You probably will review it again.
I don't think
I will.
With our
future kids. You're going to do this exact same thing to our kids.
No, that would be like 25 years into the future at least. I mean, like, they'd have to be old enough to watch it. They
Look, in 25 years, they will hopefully have moved out.
Right, let's just nip that in the bud right there. I wanted to share that because I feel like the last time we talked about it, it was one of those shit reviews where I'm just like, yeah, Pulp Fiction, it's a cool film. Yeah, just a good act, like, terrible reviews like years ago. Okay, welcome to episode 92 of the Epic Film Challenge. It's one of my favourite films. I think it's great. I think just the way it's made, the way it's shot, the way it's it's edited, the way it's acted, everything. It's a brilliant film. I won't go too much into detail about it. So I'll give it a 10 out of 10 because it's one of my favourite films. Anyway, right, so the film itself. In fact, there's another little story. Because when I bought it on Blu-ray, this was one of my first Blu-rays, and I was so excited to rewatch this. This was 7 years ago. Put the Blu-ray in. It was my first Blu-ray player, which was like low-end model, and I think it was something to do with like the firmware or something, because it wasn't up to date or something, and the Blu-ray kept skipping. And it drove me absolutely nuts. And we watched about an hour of the film where it just kept stuttering, and we had to give in and downloaded like a DVD rip, which just looked terrible in comparison. And so my last viewing memory of Pulp Fiction was a really bad one. Look at that lovely little steel case there. Oh yeah, that's brilliant. That is nice artwork. Yeah, great. Only until I put it in that piece of shit Bush Blu-ray player, and it didn't really work properly. So we, what did you say?
Bush. Sorry, Bush.
I think I should put this camera down now, and you should start writing your stand-up material. I think you could be a comedian with material like that.
Yeah,
Bush.
I was trying to be funny.
As in female genitalia. No, that's great.
No,
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
Do you know what the precedent in America was called?
So it was nice to finally see it again. And after 7 years, it feels like almost a completely different movie, you know. I get to really enjoy it in high definition, and just, I don't know, something about watching films now that I'm older, you know. When I was like in my early 20s even, I felt like I was an adult. Now I feel like a completely different person almost, and they see things so much differently. So I don't know, for me it was a lot different watching it this time. So the plot, I mean, we have 3 stories which are kind of told in out of order, you know. I could see you biting your lip already, you're just bored of this.
You really did mean 10 minutes, didn't you?
Alright, anything you want to say about Pulp Fiction before I continue?
Oh my gosh. I love how there are so many side characters in it. You have Bruce Willis, you have John Travolta, you have the motherfucker, what do you call him?
The motherfucker?
Yeah. Motherfucker.
I'm going to wait for you to get it. Surely you can get it. Think about it. He's in everything.
I know, he's in everything.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay, thank you.
God.
I would never have remembered that unless I went through the alphabet. No. I know his
name.
A,
B, D, C, E, F, G.
You skipped C.
Oh yeah, Jesus, wow.
It's got Samuel L. Jackson, Thurman, who's great, you know, and the rest of them, well.
Harvey Keitel,
yeah, but
Ving,
I don't
Rhames.
know who that is. So. Anyway, it's just funny. It's so freaking funny.
I forgot how funny it was.
To me, it's action comedy more than anything else. It's got some really over-the-top scenes in it, which I understand that probably picked it up from 16 to 18 in the PT thing. It's just that one scene. You don't get this, just hearing it even. You know what I mean.
Yep.
Bruce Willis scene.
Yep.
Bruce Willis is great. This is around his Die Hard
ish. Yeah. It's when he was at his best, I think, when he really cared about acting.
Yeah, exactly. You can tell that he wants to be a part of the movie.
Yes, exactly. It's a great way of putting it, because he doesn't these days.
John Travolta is funny. His hair is ridiculous. Tim Roth is great. It's not much of a scene. I mean, he opens up the whole movie.
Yeah.
And
bookends
he's
it.
Great. Yeah, and ends it. But yeah, I just love the scene. I shot Marvin in the face. It's so funny, and I forgot that it was so late in the movie. I was just waiting for it. I just wanted to see that scene. Tarantino,
Right, okay, so I was saying this to you after we watched it. To me, like, Pulp Fiction is like, if this is like a great movie, Pulp Fiction's like this. It's like, and then Tarantino's scene, and we're back up to great again. Like, I'll say it. I'm gonna say it.
You know what? I'm about to say it.
The fact that he wrote this movie and he's there saying N-word, N-word, N-word. Like, do I have a sign outside my house saying dead end storage? Like, it's just...
cringe.
It's cringy, yeah. I'm not going to say I'm offended by it. I'm not going to say, like, oh, you know, I'm not going to be all, like, on my high horse about it.
This was the 90s, so...
It's a very different time. Very different time. But at the same time, I just feel like it was unnecessary for him to be saying that. You know, with other characters, you know, you could I don't know, something about it just felt grimy to me, you know. It's and the fact that he wasn't acting very good, you know.
No.
He felt like he was and that's one thing about the film.
And I don't want to get a divorce.
And that just one thing about the film is that, you know, people say, oh, his dialogue is so great, it's just like real life. But to me, it's more of like a fantasy, because every character speaks the same, really. Every character, well, I guess Bruce Willis is a bit more unique, but every character has the same kind of soliloquies. Every character has the same kind of like wit, and like, you know, every character feels like they're written by Quentin Tarantino. That's not a bad thing, though. It's kind of this, you know, but it's a movie. You're supposed to enjoy it. So I like the fact that everyone has really interesting things to say and interesting ways to say them, but they do all feel like they come from the same voice. And so when he's reciting his own dialogue, to me, I become more aware of that. So that's the. But I like that scene when Harvey Keitel shows up to clean up the mess. And it only reminded me of Breaking Bad when we first meet Mike Ehrmantraut, where he turns up to clean up some mess. It's like a guy who can take care of things. So I like the scene, but don't like Tarantino too much in it. At least he's not in the film very much.
I like the way it jumps back and forth too. It's done well. It's not too messy.
When Samuel L. Jackson went to see it, I think his mother said, like, did they put it together the wrong way? Something like I remember hearing something like that. Yeah, the structure is really good. And spoiler, I'm sure you've seen Pulp Fiction, so spoilers if you haven't. I love that, you know, we see John Travolta get killed, and it's like, oh man, I really like him in this film. And then he's still in it.
It's very abrupt.
And then, like, he's still in, like, the last, like, 30 minutes of the film. So it's like you get to kind of see him get killed, which makes sense as part of the story.
So you get to miss him, but then you see him again.
And then you see him again, yeah, so it's really cool, even though, you know, he's walking off to his soon-to-be death. But,
it's like Shawn Michaels returning from retirement.
Yeah, we'll leave that where it is.
I love all the side stories.
Yep.
I love Travolta and Samuel L. Jackson together. All of those scenes with them.
So great.
Great.
Yep.
I love the Uma Thurman and Travolta scene as well.
Yep.
All of it.
Yep.
They're going to they're very natural together, I think. There's a great chemistry there.
Mm-hmm.
She's really good.
Yeah.
And how that escalates.
Oh my god.
You know? And for just his conversation in the bathroom too, and I'm just thinking, like, you better listen to yourself, because you're gonna get killed if you do anything.
Oh yeah, when he's like, now just have a drink, go home, don't, you know, yeah, great.
Yeah,
brilliant.
he's like talking to himself, like, don't do anything, you know, because she's all over him.
Yeah.
And Bruce Willis and the French chick, it's necessary because you have to know that he's planning on getting away, but I just don't like her. She's annoying to me.
I don't mind. I think she works. Think she's an interesting flavour to the film, just something different.
Oh, she is a different flavour, isn't she? My goodness, there's something. She's like a little deer. She's like a Shelby, you know. She's just. And then when he wants her to get up on the chopper instead of the motorcycle, it's not a motorcycle, it's a chopper, and she doesn't get on it, and I'm just, get on the freaking motorcycle, you stupid. And I'm feeling what Bruce Willis is feeling, and I'm just thinking, why are you with her? Oh my God, she.
Because he loves her. Because he loves her. I love the scene.
And it's good because you feel what you know, and then she starts. So, okay, don't worry. It's like when you approach a cat and you're yelling at it.
No, but he did unnecessarily freak out. But I love that he recognized that.
Not in the hotel room, on the bike.
On the bike, okay. But like in that scene, because that could so easily be a scene where he freaks out, he throws stuff around, and he goes to get his watch back.
Oh yeah, Christopher Walken and stuff.
Christopher Walken, yeah, great little scene. But it became this scene where he freaked out and smashed everything up, and then he realized, okay, let's be fair, I never told you how important that watch was to me. You know, I should have just told you that's all I fucking cared about was that watch. It's not your fault. I'm sorry. You know?
I love how he talks to himself in the car afterwards.
Yeah.
It's exactly what I would do.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, you stupid.
That's what I love, is that he has that moment where he is completely fair to her, but then afterwards he's still like, fuck, why did she get... So it's brilliant.
Yeah. Even though it's a horrible scene, I do like the scene where Bruce Willis and the big guy gets caught as well.
Yeah, it's really... yeah. How do you even describe that scene? I love the bit afterwards where...
Many ways you can describe that scene, but just don't.
I love the beat where Marcellus gets the gun and he shoots the guy in the dick, and he's there in the floor in agony, and he's got his back to Bruce Willis, and he's just like, so what do we do now? Bruce is there, he's like all mangled over to the way, his lips like I think busted, so he's just like, so what happens now? He's like, what happens now? And he describes everything he's going to do to this guy. And he's like, no, I mean, what happens now between you and me? oh, what happens now. And I just love the way, the tone that he has when he's saying, because this is a guy who's just been raped.
It's hatred.
This is a guy who's just been violated, you know, and I just love the way he plays that, and the way Bruce plays that, where he's kind of almost cowering a little bit. He's kind of unsure what's going to happen next.
Yeah, because he got the gun now, doesn't he? He could just turn around and kill him.
And I love, like, how that...
Went back.
I love how that whole sequence builds, because it's all built on, like, how fucked up things can get if you have bad luck. You know, like where Bruce Willis goes back to his house, he gets the watch, he shoots John Travolta, he's like, okay, I've got the watch. And he's like, okay, I'm gonna get away with this. Gets in his car, he's like, yeah, let's go. And then he stops at the traffic lights. Fucking Marcellus Wallace walks in front of him. Motherfucker, like, just the most, like, just bad luck you could have. And then that completely escalates.
How they're chasing each other.
And then the
how
fact...
Bruce Willis is trying to pick a weapon, and he picks like 4 different types. And he sees one new...
How they just happen to go into this one shop that is populated by these 2 psychos, like, so it's, I love the kind of, it's just such a crazy sequence. But I think for me, it really peaks like an hour and 5 minutes into the film, because the whole Vincent Mia section is one of my favorite sections of any film. Like that chunk when he picks her up to take her out, and then when he takes her home at the end of the night, like, that is just complete magic the whole way through. Like you said, their chemistry, there's just something magic about that scene. And credit to John Travolta, because he said in interviews and stuff, like, he's never taken drugs or anything, so he didn't know how to approach being high or whatever. I think it's one of the best performances of someone acting high or drunk that I've seen, because it's not over the top.
It's very underacted.
It's underacted. It's someone who's trying to not make it seem like they're that, you know, affected, but they are, just slightly. But
just a little bit off.
A little bit off. That's a great way of putting it, and it just it makes it so much more believable. And the dance sequence is great. You know, it's just such a unique sequence, actually. A sequence of scenes where, you know, when they first meet and they're trying to feel each other out a bit, then they go to the bar, and then the aftermath and everything. You know, what was that bit where they're talking about, like, she says, don't you hate that, uncomfortable silences, when they're in the bar, and then afterwards when they get home, they won the dance trophy, and they're kind of like holding each other, and then they kind of pause, and he's like, do you call that an uncomfortable silence? She's like, I don't know what you call that. So and the music, again, we haven't really talked about that. I love how the music is used in the film. It's cool music, it's enjoyable music, but it's music that's used appropriately in each of the scenes, you know. It feels natural to what's going on in the film. And you just have these stretches of Sam Jackson and John Travolta in a car talking about burgers in Amsterdam, which just has no relevance or no bearing on the plot whatsoever. But it's like, it's, again, I say it kind of is the shit people talk about, even if it does have that kind of Tarantino edge where every character sounds the same. But I like that mix where it is kind of just the regular bullshit that people talk about all the time. Yeah, Pulp Fiction. I mean, we don't talk about the plot too much, but you've seen it. You know what it's all about. And I think that the Bruce Willis section is the weakest section of the film, but it isn't weak in any way. It's really, really good.
What's the plot?
The plot is following 2 hitmen who go to kill someone, and then we kind of, and it's jumbled up because of the...
Why did they kill him again? Because they had something.
They took something from Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah, but I mean, that's just
Marcellus Wallace.
A minor part of the movie.
Marcellus Wallace is the character that makes the whole movie spin, because he's the guy who's kind of the overlord of all the characters. You know, he's the guy who hired John Travolta and Sam Jackson to go kill the guys who took his briefcase with the gold thing that we don't ever find out what was in it.
Exactly.
And then we have the Bruce Willis character.
Because there's so much else going on. I forget that that's like the...
Right, and then we have Bruce Willis' character, Butch, who's a boxer who's been paid off by Marcellus to throw a fight. He decides not to throw a fight, so now he's like public enemy #1 for Marcellus Wallace.
You're summing up the whole movie, but a plot, just a synopsis of the movie. Could you do like just 2 sentences? The back of the cover of the movie.
No, I'm further expanding upon the point that Marcellus Wallace is kind of the central figure of everything that is ticking like a clock throughout the entire film. So I tell you, you kind of have 3 parts. The first one is John Travolta's part, like that's his story. Then you have Bruce Willis's story, and then you have Sam Jackson's story, because the last part of the film was about his awakening. He thinks that there's been this divine intervention, and I love that because
I don't even see that as a part of the story. But you're right.
It is. That's kind of
very
the
short,
the third part of the film. But I love how the guy shoots at them, and the bullet holes are literally behind them. Like there's no physical way that's possible. So I love that Tarantino is playing around with it. Again, it's almost like kind of like a dashing of fantasy in there in this film. but it just makes it so enjoyable. And like almost every scene, there's great dialogue, great performances. I think Sam Jackson has never been better. I really think it's probably his best performance. I think it's John Travolta's best performance as well. I like John Travolta, but he's just so good in this film, I think. And then you have Uma Thurman, who's great. I mean, it's just everyone's great in it for the most part. And you just keep talking and talking about it and how influential it was and how people were ripping it off for so many years. That's the thing, is it's got so many things in it. And I love that it wasn't neutered, that it is 2.5 hours long. It's just like, you know, it's not a film you would expect to be an epic. And the fact that Tarantino had, I guess, probably from goodwill, from Reservoir Dogs, had been able to build up this kind of presence where he would be allowed to have a film be this long, you know, and I guess he's kind of been riding off that ever since. You know, he gets to do whatever he wants. You know, he can have a film that's 3 hours long if he wants to. But yeah, it's a film that I don't really think about too much, but now that we've rewatched it, I can't get it out of my head. Like, it's still stuck in my head so much, and I think that's a mark of a really great film. And you can debate about the violence and all the language and whatever. It's just an entertaining film, and really, really funny. Again, you think of the classic lines like, English, motherfucker, do you speak it? All that stuff. But to me, I was laughing more at the slight things I'd completely forgotten about. Just little bits of dialogue that just get thrown in there and really make you laugh. Anything else you'd like to add? Pulp Fiction, no. You seemed a lot more into it than this, than most reviews, so that was cool. I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
Well, it's a great movie.
It is a great movie.
Loads of great parts of it, and I would say 90% of it is brilliant.
Something I noticed, and I always noticed it, and always throws me off, and if you noticed it, the opening scene, right, everybody be cool, this is a robbery, and her line is, any of you fucking pricks move, and I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you. And it's a great opening scene, like the way the music hits as soon as she says it. But at the end of the film, when we come back to that scene, she says something different, and it always throws me off. She said, I don't know the exact lines.
Every last one of you.
At the end, it's something like, any of you fucking pricks move, and then it cuts angle, and I'll execute every one of you motherfuckers. And it's like, it doesn't have the same spit, it doesn't have the same venom from the beginning.
You don't even see her, do you?
Yeah, so I just, it always goes, oh, it's not as effective at the end of the film. But that's just a very minor nitpick. And yeah, it's great.
Of course, yeah, the famous John Travolta
scene. The greatly memed scene where he's like looking around like this, which is just fantastic. But I mean, there's just so many great, just mini moments like that in the film, like and like little mini threads, like the book he's reading throughout the film. You know, when he comes out the toilet and he's reading the book, and Bruce Willis looks down, and then later on you see him reading the book in somewhere else. I think in the diner at the end. But it's one of those, like Pulp Fiction. It's just like, it's like a trashy kind of, you know, story that's told really well with great actors and great dialogue and really crazy fucked up situations. In fact, I think it's a film about what happens when things just get so fucked up beyond all recognition. You know, from, you know, taking a guy in a car and accidentally shooting him in the face to, you know, going to collect your watch and accidentally getting stuck in a basement and almost raped. You know, it's just like, it just takes the extremes to everything. Or trying to rob a diner and you rob the diner that has Sam Jackson sitting there, cool as a cucumber with a gun in his hand, you know. So yeah, Pulp Fiction, fantastic film. I love it. And
definitely a movie you must see before you die. Absolutely
a film you must see before you die. I think for me, my favourite Tarantino film has always been Jackie Brown. So I've always kind of looked down a bit on Pulp Fiction to the point where I always feel like people overhype Pulp Fiction. Like, they talk about it too much. Like, it's not that good. You know, it's all over the place. I kept thinking, like, Jackie Brown's better. It's a better story. And I still think that. But I think I kind of was just looking down at it a bit too much because I was on a high horse, I think. Pulp Fiction's fantastic. It's a great film. And that's, I think, all we've got to say. So thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.